we get lots of great guests, and usually we don't see them nationally so much. They're local people. Turns out this national economic celebrity lives in New Orleans and has a family in New Orleans. And she and I have been talking since before the summer, trying to schedule something, and it just so happens the date we have is the day of a government shutdown. So who does not want to talk to a macroeconomics expert on a day like today? I certainly do. So anyway, everybody welcome Henrietta Treyz with Data Partners. Oh, I put it twice. Look at that. We could have done that. Okay, there we go. And by the way, can you update the slide deck really quickly? That's what happened.
Not on that keyboard.
All right, we'll do it. Did you turn your thing on? Yeah, just clip it to your shirt or right there.
Oh, I was
perfect.
In my ear is a microphone.
Yeah, you're used to. So the easiest way to find Henrietta is to watch Bloomberg at 5 in the morning. They have her on there all the time. This morning at 4:30, you were on in Dubai or something. Mm-hmm. Quite popular. But she has a great Instagram in case you're not up that early. And we have it coming right up. There we go. Henrietta Does Macro, which is a pretty hilarious name. Love that. I put her Instagram. Tons of videos, updated every day. If you just want to catch a couple of economics things, that's one of the two to catch on a daily basis. So I thought we'd just kind of give a little opening as to where we are, because it's the first day of Q4, which is kind of crazy that we're going to be hanging stockings soon. So here's a beautiful chart, and I'm sure this just says everything you need to know. Thank you. One person got the joke. So the S&P 500 is on a tear again this year, up almost, or up double digits, over 13% year to date. Y'all, we don't typically put double-digit years 3 years in a row together. Last year, the S&P was up over 20%, 18%, I believe, the year before, and then 14% the year prior. So this would be the fourth year of big returns in the S&P 500. I would love to get that back on this confidence monitor, Cody, for 2. Okay. But there's a problem in the stock market, and the problem is called the Magnificent Seven. Anybody know what those stocks are? NVIDIA, Facebook, or Meta, Amazon, Alphabet. Oh boy. Oracle's in there now?
I think it is now.
Oh, it should be. We were just talking this morning. The Ellisons of the new royal family. See you later, Redstones. Anyway, those 7 stocks are driving the majority of the returns. So the top line is the Mag 7 only, up over 18%. And then the bottom line is if you just weighted the S&P 500 equally by all 500 stocks, the stock market would only be up 88%. So they really are pushing performance of the whole stock market up. On top of that, and I'll let our expert tell us that, but you were just in New York. You're talking to people. Your job is to advise hedge funds and investment funds and all these different groups. What are they saying? How do they make sense of all this?
Yeah. So at this point in America, you basically can't be an investor without understanding what's going on in DC because we're so active. I think that really changed in 2010 when we did the Affordable Care Act. It's such a $16 trillion worth of the economy, and it's never gone back. So COVID expanded that with $5 trillion of pandemic response and fiscal spending. And now here we're doing tariffs for the first time in 100 years and a $5 trillion tax bill. And you basically can't be an investor unless you understand what's happening in D.C. And I worked in the United States Senate throughout the Great Recession, so I did TARP and the auto bailout and very familiar with the housing market and the crisis there. And my natural resting place is with hedge funds. I was at a hedge fund before I went to D.C. So when I go to New York, as a macro person, what we really want to talk about is taxes and tariffs. And the housing market is a critical component of the health of the U.S. economy. And one of the things that I enjoy about my job is that my clients are the smartest people in the world. I mean, they're whip smart. So, you get this feedback that's just real-time understanding from an active perspective. And their view right now is that the average American investor, first of all, you have this huge influx of retail investors, just mom and pop folks that would be buying a home, investing in real estate, and instead they're investing in the stock market. And they're investing in the stock market for exactly the reasons that I can tell from your head nodding, you already know. It's ripping. And it's not supposed to be, except for the 7 that are driving everything, as you just thoroughly pointed out.
It's easy to buy the Mag 7.
It's super easy to buy the Mag 7. It's easy to buy gold. And I didn't really have a gold bug understanding, but those folks are wild. And they talk all day long about how you should go be a gold investor. And I'm embarrassed to say I actually recently told somebody that. But
and they wait for times like right now. Like they're fine doing nothing. Gold's very stable.
Yeah.
And then they're waiting for something like a 2008,
exactly.
2009, right now, the uncertainty of right now. And then they just go all in and mortgage their house and every dollar goes into it and they make money hand over fist.
And the best thing about this market right now, investors love volatility. They love an opportunity to play the market. And right now we have extreme volatility for a whole host of reasons. I'll walk through some that are, what I feel comfortable talking about, which is, the president firing the Bureau of Labor and Statistics commissioner. What? Because you didn't like a jobs number? Because the revisions were too intense? And you can see, from the trend line, and all the economists in the world are talking about how the trend line and the data collection has gotten better over time, but it is very difficult to collect all this data, and especially in the wake of a pandemic. And while these companies are dealing with tariffs that they've never seen before and have to adjust supply chains. So you get this concern about, are we going to get data on time? And everybody is concentrating on jobs data because of the 12 Federal Reserve board members, you have this massive variety in people who think we're going into recession and others who think we're fine. So you can see that, and then you have a firing of Lisa Cook, and that's all in limbo. She's still voting with them, but the Ariana Kugler, left under some circumstances that we can discuss offline.
Another Fed board member.
Yep. So she's been replaced with Stephen Miran, who you can see from the dot plot in the Fed, who sets interest rates, obviously, that he wants a massive cut of 50 basis points or even more. And there are incredible solidarity from the Federal Reserve members in the last meeting, which was September 17th.
Yep.
They all sort of stuck pat, and Stephen Miran was the only outlier. So you have this massive disparity in opinion about whether the market's going to go up or down. Are we going to go into a recession, or are we fine? Torsten Slok, who is a close friend, and his daughter's an intern at my firm, is out there saying, do we all judge tariffs wrong? So that kind of volatility is exactly what hedge funds thrive on, and it's causing massive everybody's putting their portfolio to work right now, and that leads to a lot of spend, a lot of churn, and that gets retail investors excited, and that's going to keep people in the market as opposed to buying real estate and feeling safe like they need a safe haven. When there's times of volatility like this, that's what they do. Then you layer on the tariffs, and I end up talking a lot about tariffs with people.
Before we go to tariffs, real quick,
sure.
There's a Warren Buffett quote I love that is, "Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy." Are we in a peak greed mode? From when you're talking to these guys, I mean, look, they have to be invested all the time. Now, they can change your allocations. They can change how much is in cash or fixed instruments. But does this feel like we're in an equities bubble to you when you go to New York right now?
I would say that hedge funds are very different than retail investors. So there, I think, is inarguably a bubble. That doesn't mean it's going to burst. Bubbles can last for years. But when you go and speak with a big macro fund, the first thing they'll tell you is this market makes no sense. None of this adds up. We're looking at jobs data that clearly suggests the manufacturing sector is in a recession. They've lost 78,000 jobs since Liberation Day. Other sectors are going into recession. There's stagnant job growth plus inflation, immigration reforms from the president that have probably just killed the employment market. And I don't mean that in terms of nobody's getting employed. I mean, now it's going to be a whole different set of trajectory. We're not going to get 250,000 jobs in the United States in a month. You're going to get more like 55, 35, which is exactly what ADP put up today.
Right, 30,000, yeah.
So that's sort of the differential between a big hedge fund investor, and they're looking at the market and they're shocked because they see this massive inflow of retail investors. And it's folks who are, through the pandemic got into crypto and now they're sold on the market. That's a big deal. That's a huge contingent of money. I'd also say that this administration, Treasury Secretary Bessent, Howard Lutnick, those guys have a very strong grasp on Wall Street. And so they call the big hedge funds that are our clients, they call their CIO, they call their chief economists up to the Treasury, to the White House all the time, monthly. And they have these meetings that allow investors to feel very read in, which gives them the confidence to stay in the market. So you don't see a hedge fund pulling out because they know what's coming next. And that's very, very savvy of this administration.
So the administration is basically telling them, hey, we've got an implied put on the market. We're not going to let this fall. You guys keep inflating it, and we're going to keep doing what you.
Don't worry about the tariffs. Let me show you how it's going to work.
Don't worry about headline risk. Don't worry about, because I remember my dad taught me when I was little. I think I was 12 years old, and we were watching the Fed chair, Greenspan, and with the briefcase indicator, and he did that deliberately so that you knew if interest rates were going to go down or up before he even went into the meeting, so that the market slowly adjusted and had time.
I thought it was just his lunch.
No, that was all the printed materials that we put on an iPad now. But I think that you used to have to, news used to be a bad thing, right? Remember, we didn't let George W. Bush speak during market hours at the end of his presidency, and there was even a Saturday Night Live joke about it. But when is enough going to be enough? When are they just going to say, you know what, we're just can't take this risk that's in the system anymore? There's so many variables up in the air right now. No charts that used to make perfect sense don't make sense anymore. The 10-year moves in a funny way. When's enough for these guys?
Never. There's no such thing as enough is enough in the hedge fund space.
And is it because they're political, or is it because they just see this as an implicit put and they can go make money right now?
No, they're not political. They are personally. Everybody cares and has their view, but they're.
But it's not because they're diehard Trumpers.
Some of them are, but that's irrelevant because you need to get the call right. And that's my favorite part about my job is that I operate in politics, but it's not about, are we going to vote on abortion? Do you care? I don't want to vote. I don't want to talk about it. That's not really in my wheelhouse. I don't want to talk about it. But I do want to get it right. So is the government going to shut down? Are the tariffs going to go into effect? Are they going to start immediately? Are they going to be phased in? Is the one big beautiful bill going to pass? When is it going to pass? Is it going to get 100% bonus depreciation? Are we going to get lumber tariffs? Are we going to get timber tariffs? Are they going to tariff furniture and cabinets and vanities and all those things that go into a home? And right now, when you think about the housing market, you have to be aware of the cost of the tariffs that are coming on literally everything that we buy from China is at 55% already, and there are additional tariffs coming that everybody buys every single day, whether it's Tylenol or a new desk. All of it is getting tariffed, and those tariffs haven't hit yet. So but
it's already screwed us up.
Of course.
How many people in this room have a client right now that wants to do a renovation or that's open to do a renovation? So 4. I think in the past, everyone's hand would have gone up, and people would say, no problem, we can do a small renovation or medium renovation. Nobody, the headlines have had a chilling effect on people's desire.
Wow.
Is what we're seeing in the field.
Mm-hmm. Appropriately so.
And they haven't even gone into effect.
They literally haven't even hit yet. So one of the popular talking points is to say, oh, well, look, Liberation Day was back in April. There's been no price impact. First of all, that's not true. Look at the inflation data. It's everywhere.
Do we have an inflation slide? No, we don't. Sorry.
I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You go to Target, you've seen it. Coffee is 50% more expensive because we don't grow coffee in America because you can't. Et cetera, things like that. But the reality is those tariffs didn't go into effect until August 1st. And if it was in a warehouse, that tariff doesn't go into effect until October 7th. They literally haven't hit yet. And to really speak to the uncertainty around, do you want to do a renovation? Do you want to build a new project or something along those lines? You have to be aware of the schedule of upcoming events and what's at risk here. The Supreme Court is going to rule on whether the president can maintain these tariffs probably before Christmas, probably in sometime after Thanksgiving, early December. If you're interested, I cover that exhaustively. So we do a webcast that I will do right after this. Well, actually, you can't watch it because it's exactly at the same time as this is. So never mind.
We can catch it after.
When these tariffs go on, and they're just started to go into effect in August, they're immediately going to get disrupted. We have a 65% odds chance that the Supreme Court's going to overturn the tariffs. So that's going to be very disruptive because.
So they already took the case.
Yes.
Or have they not? Okay.
The case has gone
the
through
federal court
two courts.
Yeah.
The Court of International Trade determined unanimously that the president does not have the authority to tax through the IEEPA statute. Then the Federal Court of Appeals determined 7-4 the same way. Now the Supreme Court's going to do it. And we work with international trade lawyers to understand who have argued in front of the Supreme Court where this is going to go. And using their input as well as our prognostication abilities, we've got 65% odds that these tariffs are overruled. There's a chance that they aren't, but that's exactly what's been happening. So what you've seen in the last 2 weeks is the president start migrating to Section 232 tariffs. Those are the national security tariffs that are not threatened by the Supreme Court or any court case, and that's where timber and lumber and furniture and those late night tweets that he put out last week about a whole bunch of stuff, that's in order to be prepared for the eventuality where IEEPA gets overturned.
Prescription drugs, chips, those sorts of things. That's where he can go make.
Exactly.
So here's our inflation data chart. Here's our inflation chart.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. So, the average American is thinking right now, and you can see it in the consumer confidence data, that inflation is going to rise. 83% of Americans believe that prices and the economy are their number one problem, and they're going to get worse. The American public is not sold on the idea that tariffs are tax cuts, which is a narrative that you'll hear from Peter Navarro and the president. And the polling data on how Americans feel about tariffs is actually most negative of any issue that the president has. So it's this really incredible dynamic where they keep saying that tariffs are tax cuts, and the American public is actually extremely educated now on what a tariff means. And it's a really important part of the conversation because there's a really easy way for the president to make these tariffs permanent. And that is to get Congress to vote on it and give him the authority, which he could do if he just goes and asks them.
They don't want to do that.
They don't want to do that. Right. And they don't want to do that because the tariff revenue is generating income hand over fist. $4 trillion over 10 years. And a big reason that the market is not declining is because this is fixing our deficit crisis. So if you had the bond market going ballistic and concerned about default and concerned about the future of the United States and the dollar and American exceptionalism, these tariff revenues that we are all paying as consumers are actually healing that delta, that wound that we have in the debt. And that's actually bolstering a lot of the economy. So should the tariffs come off, ironically, the market will likely take that as a material negative because now we're not getting that $4 trillion in revenue that we need to maintain the budget deficits of the United States and risk going into a pretty bad default and things like that. So
that sounds so good, but then when I listen to you talk about what it's done to American farmers and soybean tariffs, and we have to go put a whole farm bailout package together now?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
because of tariffs, because China just said we're not buying any more soybeans and they're 30% of
61%.
Oh, that's right, 61% of our soybean purchases.
So during the president's first term, we obviously launched a trade war with China. To put it in perspective, that covered $350 billion worth of goods. And we did it really slowly. Bob Lighthizer was the U.S. trade representative at the time, and he did it on a really phased-in basis, hitting mostly like industrial inputs first, like wind turbines and stuff that nobody in here is ever going to buy. Now it's on literally everything. And if you buy something from Vietnam or Indonesia or the Philippines, your tariff is 60%. If you buy it from India, your tariff is 50%. Brazil, 50%. China, 55%, rising to 83% if we go past November 10th without another deal. I mean, Canada and Mexico are on at 25%. It's crazy. And the reason that the market is not responding negatively is because the bond market was very, very upset going into this election and going into the U.S. economy, particularly after they passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is $5 trillion. $3.5 trillion in the immediate term, and then in 3 years when all those tax cuts expire, Congress is going to re-up them, right? We don't vote for tax hikes, we vote for tax cuts. So the ultimate 10-year impact of that bill is $5 trillion. And they figured out a way to backfill it through a very regressive taxation policy, but the market doesn't care as long as they're getting the money, and that's $4 trillion from these tariffs. So when the tariffs get repealed by the Supreme Court, if they do, then the market will have very uncomfortable day. Walmart will love it. Target will love it. Nike, Under Armour, all those guys will be very happy. But the bond market will freak.
We talk about the bond market being the adult in the room constantly.
Right.
So so this makes sense now. They're happy because they don't love they don't care about policy. They care about the fact that $4 trillion is coming in to backfill this big hole. Mm-hmm. So they feel like the government debt is more secure.
Yes, that's exactly right. Helps the market keep going up.
Okay. So we're shut down today.
Oh, I forgot. We're shut down.
A full government shutdown.
Thanks for taking my mind off.
Last time, yeah, you're welcome. Well, now you got us worried about a whole lot of other things, like what the heck we do if the Supreme Court comes back in December saying no way, Jose. But I don't think we can solve that. So this shutdown kind of snuck up on me, to be honest. I don't know if anyone else is in the same place, but what the heck? We shut down, I guess, when in the last Trump administration, 2019, it was the longest shutdown in history, and it was only a partial shutdown. I feel like the only people that lost out were some like government workers or something like that, which I don't, maybe there's 7 degrees of separation or something that I could find. But it sure didn't impact anyone in this room that I know of, my neighbors, etc. Is that the same story? Like, does this matter? What are we even fighting for? Like, what's the quick overview?
I mean, you could probably ignore it unless you have a friend that works at Veterans Affairs or is a veteran or isn't currently in the Marines. The deal is 750,000 people work for the federal government spread across the country. It's blue and red states combined. The pain is actually disproportionately heavy on red states. They have more federal employees. Those people either can't go to work and won't get paid, or they have to go to work and they don't get paid. The congressmen and the senators do get paid, though, for this entire time.
Well, naturally.
So it's kind of annoying more than anything, if I can be like really chill with y'all. It's going to be disruptive. The public parks are going to be open. You're going to be going to the airport, and the air traffic controllers are doing all this, go ahead, whatever, and they're not getting paid. So it's not fun. The 35-day shutdown was, Trump asking Pelosi for money for the border wall, and she said no. It was over the holidays. They shut it down for 35 days, and it was not very disruptive because nobody was paying attention anyway. This is designed to be very disruptive. The Democrats are pressuring Chuck Schumer to shut the government down because they're furious about everything. And the Democrats are impotent. They have no power. They can't do anything. So in this situation, what they've seized on is healthcare and the ACA subsidies that were increased during COVID. And the Republican talking point, I think, is a really excellent one because it suggests to me that there is an off-ramp. And my only job is to figure out when the BLS is going to start publishing data again and when the Department of Labor is going to start publishing data again. So to just really, really succinct and blunt here, the Democrats are saying we want the ACA subsidies that expire at the end of this year to be extended. The majority of Congress wants them to be extended. The Republicans are in a bad way. They just kicked 12 million people off of Medicaid, and this is going to kick 22 million people off of those ACA subsidies. Okay, so when they go back home to their red states, which are disproportionate users of Medicaid, they're the ones that are going to get shellacked. Tommy Tuberville in Alabama is running for governor. He needs to make sure that this happens. Fine. So
I'm going to miss him in the Senate.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
he's one of our bright lights.
He's one of our bright lights.
You're so good at not biting on that.
I like Senator Kennedy. He says the most ridiculous stuff. I have a good time with him.
They're great. We're going to miss him one day.
The ACA subsidies and healthcare is sort of like a really comfortable resting place for Democrats. They've been talking about healthcare since the beginning of time. They feel like the American public understands it.
And they voted so many times. There were so many votes that failed to try to repeal Obamacare and ACA.
Exactly.
And they never got there. So basically the Democrats feel emboldened to take this fight because they've got a few votes to hold this up. And it's the only thing they've got. Is that really the story here?
It's definitely what they are most united around. Democrats are still really confused about how they feel about tariffs. I mean, it used to be the Democrats are the party of tariffs, and now Republicans are. I think it's the biggest policy shift of the Republican Party that I've ever seen. I mean, they used to be pro-free trade, and now they're pro-fair trade, which is not a thing, and now apparently has 55% tariffs. So That's a really uncomfortable place for the Republican conference. So uncomfortable that Speaker Johnson put a rule on the floor last week that bans votes on any of these tariffs until January 31st of 2026. So he knew that the members wanted to vote against these tariffs because of course they do. American public doesn't like it. They're all going into a midterm election cycle. So the speaker's job, and one of the things that they have at their disposal, a tool that they have, is that they could pass a rule and say, you're not allowed to vote on this, this, and this. And he said, all right, y'all can't vote on tariffs.
What about Epstein files? Can we vote on that? Or do they pass a rule yet on that?
All right, we can go there.
No, we don't.
Actually,
by
it's
the way,
happening right now.
Yeah.
It's actually very interesting. There is a
That
Congress...
makes perfect sense. Why we're in a shutdown while all the news is somewhere else? Let's go to that.
Well, I'll be very specific. The special election in Arizona took place recently, and the winner is a Democrat who won by 40 percentage points, landslide. She is now ready to be confirmed, and she could have been confirmed yesterday during the pro forma session that gavelled in at noon. And because she would be the 218th vote to release the Epstein files, they did not swear her in. So now she is an elected official who was not being sworn in, and now that the government is shut down, she will not be sworn in because they can't confirm her.
Yeah.
So you said it, not me.
No, I'm saying I'm not taking a position. I'm being like, oops, we just missed it.
Yeah.
Just missed the deadline.
Yeah.
By the way, we have breaking news that the Supreme Court is letting Fed Governor Cook stay on the Federal Reserve Board until oral arguments in January. So look at that. That's interesting.
Where's the market?
The 10 years down a little, NASDAQ's down a tenth.
They're
I
gonna
don't
like
see
that.
a Dow.
They're going to like that very much.
Well, good. We should get our day trading going.
Yeah.
Since real estate's, ho hum.
There you go.
Okay. let's
Dow
not
like
put
that.
let's not put that one online. Okay.
Wow, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal.
Before we open up to questions, you live in New Orleans.
I do.
You have kids here. What should our mindset be? You choose to be here. You could be in D.C. You could be in New York. What is the case for staying here for your family? What do you see for us as why we should, basically chalk a lot of this up as news and soldier on because we have a great things in general are headed in the right direction?
This is like the nicest question I've ever been asked. I'm so grateful.
You're welcome.
I don't usually get ones. I could cry. I'm a Yankee. I'm from New York. I am predisposed to think New York is better than everywhere, and I have been here for 15 years now. I have 2 little girls that go to the same school. I'm in love with it. I mean, it's better than everywhere else. It's better than everywhere. The schools are phenomenal. I think Willow is incredible. I think McGee is amazing. I think the people are better. The food is absolutely better.
Yeah, well said.
I love it here. I can't quit it. And you know what I've seen? I've seen a lot of people leave and come back. And I love my home. It's a really special place, and I don't want to lose it and then be like, oh no, I'm not going to like anywhere as much as
All to go to Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah, no, forget that.
Yeah, no way. All right, who's got a question for Henrietta? Philip.
So I hear a lot about the AI bubble. It seems like it's not bursting, but I was listening today to someone do an analysis, thank you, Cody, about how these AI companies, they're starting to buy each other's stock, or there's equity in each other, and that it's very reminiscent of the .com bubble. I wasn't very aware of the .com bubble when it happened, and I didn't really know. I got a nice history lesson on it. But it does seem like it's still driving the market. Everybody's still using these things, but I didn't realize that all of these companies were starting to invest in each other, which is why they're starting to prop back up. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as a concern, or are there way other factors that need to be taken into account to really make a prediction on something like this bursting?
Yeah, there's this amazing visual image that I saw that is seared into my mind. Like a power strip. If you have one of those old houses and you plug just one in so you can fill up everything else, there's a picture to describe this where the power strip is just plugged into itself. And it's amazing. But that is very much what's happening. I think the story of all this is the electricity prices and the skyrocketing of inflation around electricity. They're building these gigantic data centers. And right now, those data centers, there's one in northern Louisiana, they're all over the place. They're actually generating quite a lot of jobs, right? Because they're building this construction. And as soon as those jobs are built, there's going to be no people in there. And the reason the market is not responding to the slow employment data is because there's a lot going on. Number one, we kicked out all the immigrants. Number two, you are building these data centers everywhere, and they're critically important. And then number three, once you build them, you don't need those employees anymore. So the unemployment rate is going to be the biggest concern for the Federal Reserve, more so than inflation, because everybody's going to be laid off. And what does that mean? That means the Fed gets to cut interest rates. And that means the market spikes up. So that's the sort of circle of life around AI. When it comes to a question of what is AI going to do with us, or to us and for us, this is not my area of expertise, so I'll tell you about the investors who are experts in this and what I talked with them about last week. The near-term impact of AI is going to be much smaller than what everybody's expecting. There's not a hovercraft car yet, and it's 2025. I mean, I think that's supposed to be here by now. So it's going to be a slow process, but 30 years from now, it's going to be the equivalent of Uber or being able to FaceTime somebody. I mean, when you were 16, well, you probably had phones already, but I did not, and I would be like, I want to see my friend, and now you can just see your friend anytime. It's crazy. But it took 20 years. So that's sort of the trajectory. So AI is going to go through a bit of a cycle. It's always going to power up. It's going to result in massive job losses. And at the same time, that's okay because the Fed could cut interest rates. That's the market's perspective.
I think a big difference of what I remember the internet boom was that there were 1 million companies that said they were, they got ridiculous valuations. Mm-hmm. And we basically have OpenAI, not public, right? Mm-hmm. You can only invest in it through hedge funds can invest in it, but not the public. Anthropic, same story. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft, Meta, and you can buy power companies. Those have been doing well. But there's just not pets.com
right
in this market.
Yet.
You can get picks and shovels for sure of all the people supplying to these data centers, but you can't go get these high flyers like we had that got silly valuations with negative earnings. And the earnings have been very real. And furthermore, if you look at like DocuSign stock yesterday, they took a massive dive because basically OpenAI came out and said, yeah, we can make a quick little if you want to write a document in ChatGPT, we can make it so that we can write a little quick thing so I can send it to you and sign, and you don't need DocuSign. Like, we just got rid of the whole platform by just being able to vibe code signature at the bottom. And DocuSign took a slide. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that, I just don't see the same analogy.
Well, it's not there yet. And this is, again, the opportunity of volatility. So DocuSign's going to get smoked. I mean, everybody loves when that happens on the street. I mean, they love when there's an opportunity to get in at the bottom or sell. That kind of churn is really what investors thrive on. What I would say is that we didn't know that influencers were going to be a thing. And now all of a sudden, there's a 20-year-old boy or girl who talks about donuts and they are flying on private jets. Eventually, that will be something that is created. AI will generate some new and different job. And so really advanced folks right now are trying to figure out what that's going to be. Yeah. The example that I was given recently is to think of, you can ask AI to tell you the top 10 restaurants in New Orleans, but it can't make you a reservation. That's going to change. But it needs to all get integrated. And eventually you can just say, hey, find me a dentist and book my kid an appointment. And that's going to be one of the number one drivers. And if you really want my pet issue about the U.S. economy, do you know that women are 10 percentage points more pessimistic about the state of the U.S. economy or any economy, regardless of what is actually happening? It's fascinating. It's a leading indicator in elections, which, I also forecast those. But the reason, I think, my pet hypothesis is that women are responsible for 75% of the purchases in a home. So if there's a man and a woman, the woman is the one buying the paper towels and the belts and the kids' soccer stuff and whatever. And as long as that's true, it could be that AI will cater to those women, and they will cater to those moms, and it'll be like mother's little helper. That's kind of cool. So if you think about AI and you think about where it could go and what the next generation is looking, ask yourself, like, what is my wife spending money on? What is she doing? What's occupying her time? What is my, whoever it is, what am I spending money on? And then go straight to that. And that's the kind of stuff that AI is going to generate. They'll follow the money.
Interesting.
And the women spend the money.
I like that. Questions? Anyone? Ashley?
Do you think that the reason why the Democrats are against tariffs right now are because the Republicans are for them? Because if you go back in time, most of the biggest talking heads in the Democratic Party, you can hear them saying they, disagree with the tariffs and we're being unfairly, treated in that space.
Yeah.
And now that there's something being done about it, they're totally against it. I mean, you could say the same thing with immigration. I mean, everybody going back 10, 20 years believed in a closed border. But do you think that it's just because it's a political thing?
In my experience, the Democrats are not united in opposition to the tariffs. That's why they're not shutting the government down over the tariffs. I think the polling data is really telling here because the American public doesn't like the tariffs, but the Democrats aren't seizing on it as a campaign issue because they don't know if they don't like the tariffs. So I'm very close with the Chief of Staff on the Ways and Means Committee, for example. And he and I are obsessed with macro policy. But the Democrats are shutting down the government over health care, much to the chagrin of anybody who wants to talk about macro policy. And it's because the Dems are not clear on whether they like these tariffs or not. I would say that you have to get into the nuance. While Biden kept all of the tariffs that Trump put on in the first term, what happens when you put a tariff on is you can't take it off until country X delivers on whatever they've demonstrated. So the phase one trade agreement that Trump reached in the Oval Office in February of 2020 going into the election was achieved so that they could back up the farmers because, as we mentioned before, the farmers got 3 bailouts in Trump's first term, which was larger than even the auto bailout in the Great Recession.
Seriously?
Yeah, by $10 billion. So,
because we talk about that still today, or people talk about that.
I get PTSD every fall.
Like that was the biggest sin we've had in this country.
Yeah.
In forever, and wow.
I remember 63% of the House Republican Conference was reelected in a new member after TARP and the auto bailout because they ran against a Republican who voted for it and the Bush administration. So
holy
I don't want to get too detailed because this is a really complex topic. Democrats don't know how they feel. Republicans, by and large, don't like it. They like President Trump's narrative around we've been taken advantage of, which is absolutely correct. We never should have let China into the WTO. We lost all our manufacturing jobs. Now they're sending in fentanyl. There's a big difference between what Trump did in the first term, which was to tariff at 25% maximum rates, $350 billion worth of goods from China, which is about 2/3 of everything we're getting. Now we're taxing the whole world. Now we're taxing NATO allies while they're fighting Ukraine, for Ukraine against Russia. Now we're taxing India, who we were trying to bring closer to us for the last 30 years so that we could create a wall around China with their closest neighbor. And it worked, except for now we have 50% tariffs on them and secondary tariffs for Russia purchases. But we don't have them on China. But we do have them on Brazil because of their political operations and the way they're treating their former leaders. And we're also giving Argentina a bailout for $20 billion while they get the soy purchases that China used to give to Nebraska. So
that's why we did that.
It's all of what's going on, and I think that is what Democrats and the vast majority of Americans, and certainly hedge funds, don't like. The extremes of it all. I think also a big problem is just really easy to explain is we fought the British to make sure that you didn't have a king deciding tax policy. That's literally what the Tea Party was for. That's what the Boston Tea Party harbor was. The reason the case about tariffs is in front of the Supreme Court is because the president is deciding tax policy on his own. And I can tell you what the Constitution says. It says it has to start and originate in the House Ways and Means Committee, where I used to work. And then it has to go over to the Senate Finance Committee, where I also worked. And now the president's doing it alone. So it's a violation of the Constitution. And that is something that Democrats can rail against, and a lot of Republicans do too. As I mentioned, Speaker Johnson had to put a bill on the floor to create a rule to mandate that they could not vote on tariffs because it exposes the Republican conference to either supporting the president's trade agenda or not. supporting higher taxes on a regressive basis. This is the most regressive tax policy you can get. Wealthy people don't need to worry about this. They spend all their money on services. Poor people spend all their money every single day because they have to. They don't have extra money. So they're buying, a new pair of sneakers, and it hits them harder. So I think it's really complicated. I think the best thing Republicans have going for them right now is Democrats are absolutely lost. Nowhere. They have no message. They have no leader. They have no narrative. They have no issue to rally around. And now they're shutting the government down over ACA subsidies that don't expire for another 3 months. I mean, give me a break. So the good news for the Republicans right now, even when the president is using this extreme uncertainty and extreme immigration and tariff policy, is that Democrats are nowhere.
Cody, you want to finish this out here?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Well, Guy on go, and then we'll go to Cody. How about that?
No, I just have like a real estate related question, kind of.
We may have had the same question.
So, if you had a client, or if you kind of like were in opposition, what is something in the economic future that could make us feel good about transacting? Is there something that you think we should look forward to? Is it something to 10 years? Is it something with? Have you seen anything where, I know we have like our own special challenges locally, but overall that would kind of like help convey a positive message to our clients?
I think about this a lot because I am not from here, and I want to stay here, and I want it to be here, and I'm very ignorant about like hurricanes and stuff, and so I just assume my whole house is going to collapse, or like we're all going to get eaten by alligators, and I'm not even kidding. Like I genuinely think like that.
You live in like a 150-year-old house uptown, right?
Yes, and we evacuated
so it's been there
from
forever.
Ida,
It's been there forever.
and I
You're
freaked
fine.
out.
You're fine. Yeah,
Okay.
It's seen everything.
I just want you to say that I also know how to get around on the subway, like the back of my hand, and we are not the same. I don't understand that. I don't know that that's true.
Except when it floods during Superstorm Sandy.
Right, no, but I know how to get around. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not worried
gotcha.
about how to get around, but I don't know if, like, my whole, like, are the walls just going to fall off? Like, I just assume that that's what happened. I think if you want to, the way that I think about it, and I'm really not qualified to answer this question, except to talk about interest rates, which I'm happy to do. Maybe I'll just stick with that instead of telling you my fingers crossed that AI is going to solve climate change. That's where my head's at.
I like that. That's a good one.
That's my hope. With the Federal Reserve, I think there is a growing view that inflation is never going to get back down to 2%. And so our new normal needs to be somewhere in the 3% range, and that frees them up to think about the employment situation to a greater extent. So this ADP data, now that the BLS is shut down and they're not going to give us their numbers on Friday, ADP is great again. Sidebar.
Which it's terrible. That data is wrong every single month.
Data is wrong every single month, but I must do a little plug here. My boss in the United States Senate was Frank Lautenberg, who was a guy who went to World War II, literally fought the Nazis, came back to the United States on the GI Bill, went to Columbia, started a payroll processing company, and that company is ADP, which is very cool, I think. So that was my boss. The ADP data is not ideal, but it is the only thing we have now. And the private sector is stepping up. Every time you see bad employment data, that means interest rates are going to prioritize unemployment rates. And as we get up above the 4% threshold, I mean, 4% is full employment, but as we start getting into 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, the Fed starts thinking differently. There's going to be an inflection point should we get up to 5. So actually, the better AI gets and the more people get unemployed, the lower interest rates are going to go, and that's great for the housing market. And they do know that they need to work on housing. So you're seeing that nationwide, whether it's building and construction, or whether it's trying to subsidize, or whether it's trying to prioritize lowering interest rates the way the president is doing, so that you can get interest rates lower and people will get loans. I mean, that is a big part of the policy. So I think everybody's concentrated on housing right now, and even though everybody's kind of annoying, they are focusing on it as an issue, and that means something will shake out.
We're going to go to Ben, but we had a question. What should we expect when the current Fed chair is replaced next year?
Oh.
Jay Powell, I give Jay Powell a lot of credit here, and I think he's done an amazing job of navigating some, I mean, COVID was, he kind of pulled a master class.
Absolutely.
And I think that if he would have been, what's the biggest complaint? That he waited too long to raise rates? Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't, he's not a doctor and didn't know if COVID was going to rear its ugly head in an ugly way. It was still nasty in China, messing up that economy. And I don't mean to be an apologist for him, but I think in general that he's done a pretty darn good job as a Fed chair, and he'll be up there with a Greenspan or.
Yeah.
So we're going to get somebody else. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be somebody that's political, or is it going to be somebody that's a policy expert? What do you think is coming?
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on this on the street right now. I would say Wall Street thinks that Jay Powell has done a heck of a job, and they're very happy to go to the mat for him, which is why Trump's efforts to get him to resign have not actually yielded. And he's getting more and more gravitas and credibility and support as those kinds of efforts transpire. So we call this fiscal dominance. That's when the White House tries to exert dominance over the Federal Reserve. And there, we can play the name game and who will Trump nominate. The big question is whether Jay Powell will actually resign, which is the normal thing, but he does have a number of years left on his term, even after he's not the chair anymore. So Trump is going to have the opportunity to continue nominating people. Something happened last night, sort of under cover of darkness, where I mentioned the BLS direct commissioner had been fired earlier this summer, Erica McIntyre. So E.J. Anthony is the guy that Trump nominated to replace her. This is very in the weeds, but E.J. Anthony is obviously very partisan. He, was the economist at a very partisan think tank. He had this very visceral negative reaction from the economics universe, from accountants, from CFAs, from everybody who watches the data compilation. Friends of the BLS is even a group now that writes letters about these kinds of things. And so E.J. Anthony was very controversial. And we see that the Republican Party is catering to the president. They're doing pretty much everything that he wants. And last night, the president was forced to take his name off the nominations list.
That just got lost in the news.
Yes, very big deal. And the reason that it happens like that without a public vote is because obviously it's very embarrassing for the administration, and no Republican wants to embarrass the president. So they withdrew the nomination. They withdrew two, actually. But E.J. Anthony was one of them. And so one of the things I would say is that as the president goes forward and tries to nominate new people, this is the backdrop with which he is entering into. He has tried to call too late Powell a disaster and push him out with photo ops and AI and memes and everything that he can throw at him, and it hasn't worked. He's tried to fire Lisa Cook, and the courts are not letting it happen. He's trying to replace Erica McIntyre with a guy who is plainly partisan and will, fudge the numbers. That's, at least the expressed fear. And he got withdrawn by the Senate. So there are backstops. They are slow. They are tedious. You have to really pay attention, which is not for everybody. I think it's awesome, and that's what's happened. That's direction of it. So when we get, will it be Waller? Will it be Kevin Hassett? These are 12-member boards for a reason, so that even when you do get somebody who's explicitly one way or explicitly another, it gets all washed out. It's democracy, sort of at its finest and messiest.
Go ahead, Mr. Furman.
How do you see the underemployment rates both affecting real estate and then going forward with AI as far as underemployment?
Meaning like the loss of home builders, like physical home builders, because that's construction, that kind of thing?
More so people that have various college degrees and are either working part-time or not working a job up to what their degree would normally qualify them to attain.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of energy on both sides on talking about either underemployment or that the numbers are missing a whole group of people who they just don't look at on the rolls, and that comes up as if we should really care, and some people get energy around it. And I've always thought of like it's a trend, aren't we just more like when we look at job openings or we look at jobless claims, aren't we looking at a general trend and not the exact raw number? Is that how we should think about this, or what's your?
Well, on the
sorry to step on your question, but
on the immigration front, it's definitely a trend, and it's going to be that way. So you're not, as I mentioned before, you're not going to get 225,000 jobs created when you don't have any immigration, because that's the bulk of the jobs and job growth and GDP growth and all that stuff. That's gone now, which is fine if that's what you want. The difference is that if you look at specific segments, like specific demographics, age brackets in particular, the youth unemployment rate is sky high, 10.5% or something. So that's that's going to have to shake out and change. I went to college right after a recessionary period, and those folks never really recovered. They never got on the same trajectory. So that's unfortunately the cycle that we've been brought into now.
And that's the kind of thing that topples governments.
Well, then you get...
When you have huge youth unemployment, huge change,
what were
all
those
attempts can follow.
The 1% protest, what was that? The 99%? Wall Street, remember that?
Occupy Wall Street?
Yes, there you go. I mean, that's how you get this kind of
OWS?
unrest. Yeah.
All right. Good last question. Okay, Cody, take us away, and we'll let you wrap.
I think just kind of zooming out a little bit on Guyans, but maybe not local. Just we felt like in the last 3 years that we're a part of a recession in real estate, even prior to like a larger recession. At some point, we're told it's unlikely to happen. We got the smooth landing, and now we're back in uncertain terms. Is that where you see us? A little bit more macro housing would be interesting on how you view that as well.
I would start off by saying I don't spend a tremendous amount of time on it, but I would look at marriage rates. I would look at the rising delta between women and men and what they think about a successful life and what that looks like. There's some amazing polling that came out last week that ranks a whole slew of issues. It's like 15 different issues for men and women, and they were literally polar opposite. Men think having a marriage and children is like one of the most important things that they can do. It was in their top 2 items, and for women, it's all the way at the bottom. It's crazy. I'll shoot you over the polling so you can see what it is. So in that situation, you don't have household formation. If you don't have a household formation, you don't need a house. And that's a trend that is very, very real. I'm not qualified to speak to whether that's sustainable, but that is an absolute obvious trend. You can see it in the election data. You can see it in that kind of polling. That doesn't mean people aren't going to want a house, but I do think people think of a house as like a permanent investment, and it gives them stability, and people feel very unstable right now.
We're going to have a recession, a full-blown recession.
I think the United States is incredibly diverse, and that's going to continue to make us better than everywhere else. So, the UK hasn't grown in 11 years. The United States came out of a global 100-year pandemic better than literally everybody else. So did we have inflation? Sure. It went all the way to 3.5%, 4%. In Germany, it was 12. Like, what are you talking about? So it just depends on your perspective. Will there be 2 quarters of negative GDP growth? That was the estimate. Right now, people are anticipating that the tariffs are not going to cost anything. I don't believe that, mostly because I know when they started and what's coming to an uncomfortable level of detail, and it really just hasn't hit yet. And I'd be happy to speak to that, but my hope is that we sort of eat this inflation. We're seeing businesses pass as much on to China and to other directions as possible, but I mentioned that it was regressive. So new cars, for example, are up 1%, which is not so bad, but used cars are up 6%. And the auto parts manufacturers are killing it because nobody's buying a new car because they're keeping their old car because they're afraid of tariffs, and then they need to go get repairs. So AutoZone is a major beneficiary, even though auto parts are tariffed at 25%. So I know that all those pieces are coming. There's a lot more to come on the tariff front, a lot of volatility, and so that job creation that the president is striving for is impossible, particularly when you go and raid a Georgia manufacturing facility and deport Koreans that just invested $350 billion in the United States. That doesn't help with the near-term narrative of bringing investment back to the United States.
That's fantastic.
All right. I know I'm going to listen to the recording tonight. This was really good. I'm so grateful you came. I hope you come back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. And I know you're like crazy busy today, but like doing back-to-back like satellite feeds for people all over the world. But thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Really appreciate it. All right.